Hey, Ben here, and in today's video I'm going to talk you through the 5 things you need to know to take your business remote in 2020. So obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's affected pretty much everyone around the globe. It's affected a massive amount of businesses that were not set for remote working. So if you are now trying to scrabble, trying to get things set up, you're trying to set something up in the future and look to get things in place, or you just want to look at your existing remote working strategy and see how you can make it better, then these 5 tips are for you. So tip number 1, you need to be able to make sure that your technology can keep up with you and support you in a remote working environment. Now, a lot of this sounds quite standard, so obviously you're going to really need things like laptops so that you can move your workspace to and fro. You know, if you've got things like machinery, then obviously you can't really move that. There's not a lot you can do. But if you've got things like servers, they need to be cloud-based. Physical computers and things like that, laptops far outweigh desktops because they're mobile, which means that people can take them wherever they need to work. Telephone systems, instead of having PBXs installed in offices, we need to be looking at VoIP phone systems so that you basically have a software client on your laptop or your mobile phone and you're able to make conversations and it all links up just like a typical business phone system. You're able to have operators distributing calls and all sorts. Obviously you can, if you're relatively small, you can be using things like mobile phones and things like that, but you need to have that remote capability. You can't obviously just unplug your PBX phone from the office and take it back home. It's not going to work like that. So you need to be looking at the actual technology you use and make sure that they are not tied to your physical geographic location. So use cloud-based services instead of like on-site servers and things like that. Tip number 2 is look at your software. You need to make sure, again, that certain bits of software are going to need to run. Things like cloud-based software, so things like CRM systems or email systems, anything like that. Instead of having those on computers within your physical office, ideally as part of your disaster recovery plan, I would advise making sure they are cloud-based. These businesses are set up for this. They can manage them, they have employees working, all of this stuff is taken care of. So just like your technology, you need to make sure that your software is up and ready and cloud-based so that wherever your employees are, they are able to just click on and basically do their work. So tip number 3, your processes need to be adapted in order to accommodate home working. So things like, where they're going to work, making sure that they know your employees know that they need to have a dedicated work environment, that work starts at a certain time, that this is how breaks work. If you are sick, you still need to let us know, these are the days that we need to check in. These are the this is how, if you're doing brainstorms, you're not going to be able to go into a physical room. So you need to make sure that you have software in place that people can connect. They know how to do that. And basically just so that everything is clear, but that accommodates home working, remote working, as well as being in a physical office. So number 4 is people. It sounds crazy because anybody can work from home, but some people just do not get on with working from home. Now at the moment, no one really has a choice. Unless you're a key worker, you are working from home. So, people don't really have a choice, but some people are more they're happier working from home. Some people they can't focus, they need that office environment. So you need to look at things like your recruiting process and, if you have got existing people, there might be training, there might be transition periods you're going to need to go through and ease them through it. So, because it can be quite a daunting task, suddenly remote working. People think they're going to feel isolated. That they're not going to feel part of the team. There's a lot of other things. So there's different parts that you can help them with training and just making sure that when you're employing new people, you are very clear. If you operate a remote working business, you need to be very clear about that and give people the chance to make their decision on whether that is for them or not for them. Like I say, at the moment, people don't really have a lot of choice and everyone's getting on with it. But, you know, if you're looking to take your existing business remote full time, then you need to make sure that you do consult with your team, because, you know, if you could end up in quite a sticky situation if you suddenly try and put remote working on everybody and find out 90% of your team is then going to leave. So don't just assume that everybody is going to be on board for remote working, because, you know, some people just don't like it. Okay, and last point number 5, it's all about contact. So, you know, contact, people's mental health. You know, if people are working remote, it is very easy for people to kind of, especially if somebody doesn't have a partner, they live alone, they can suddenly end up 3 or 4 days in, they haven't really seen anyone, they haven't had any face-to-face contact. So it's really important to protect your employees and make sure everyone stays sane. You know, have regular check-ins, have video systems set up so that you can all dial in and just have hangouts, you know, virtual coffee breaks. There's regular check-ins with the team and managers. You know, just make sure that if people, you know, if people need to work something out, have a brainstorm, you know, try and get webcams working so that people can actually see each other and feel like they're physically in the same room as each other, because all that face-to-face contact really helps. You need to make sure that people don't sort of suffer in silence and end up feeling a bit isolated. So that's the 5 tips. For me, there are massive benefits to remote working. You know, being able to basically employ from anywhere within your country or within the whole world, basically. You know, you are not fixed to a single geographical area. You know, some people are under this false conception that, you know, if you are a remote business, you're not a real business. Oh, if you don't have like a physical office space that everybody comes into every day, then you're not a proper business. And that's just rubbish. You know, it's an old way of thinking, and I'm not saying there won't be some businesses that still have those kind of feelings or thoughts, but it's because they're not keeping up with the times. So, you know, there are so many benefits to remote working. I just think you need to be aware of some of the constraints, some of the things that you're going to need to look at. One of my big warnings would be very careful with this so-called spying software or productivity software that basically sits there and try and monitors people's, you know, working on their laptop and things like that. Gauge people on the work. You know, people have a job to do. If people are delivering what they're supposed to be delivering within the time they're supposed to be doing it, then they're doing their job. And if they're doing a good job, then, you know, if they take an extra 20 minutes for lunch, does it really matter? You know, for me, it's about mutual respect. Everybody is pulling, everybody is kind of got their role to do. Everyone's pushing in the right direction. If you do get somebody that doesn't respect that, instead of trying to then constrain everybody else to these new rules and policies you put in place, you need to remove the person that isn't pulling their weight. Because, you know, like I say, in my marketing agency, we've been operating, you know, remote working facilities for years and years, probably 6-7 years now. And in all that time, we've only ever had one person that has caused a problem. And that's because they just weren't a very nice person. They didn't care about the team. They weren't really interested in doing any work. And they were rooted out and they left the company very, very quickly. So don't make knee-jerk reactions and kind of try and constrain everybody because you got one bad egg. Just get rid of the bad egg. So I hope you found that useful. If you've got any more questions on remote working or you want me to kind of go through anything else, then be sure to let me know in the comments below.